Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, 19... Well, the copyright is 1976, IMDb says 1977. This is Island of Death. This was put out by Arrow Video on Blu-ray and DVD. Got this on a 50% off sale. And this is the back. This is the Region 1 release, actually A, B, and C. No region to this. This is Island of Death. This is the original poster art. You can see real carefully there inside of his mouth. Island of Death went by a few other names as well, but this is the most popular name by far. The director's name was Nico Mastorakis. He's still alive, and supposedly, possibly working on a part 2. Island of Death. This film has, it actually says in the back here, let me read the tagline. A bizarre honeymoon, they had time to love and time to kill. Island of Death has quite the reputation amongst underground cult film fans as, one of the most disturbing, kind of perverted, violent films, kind of offensive, politically incorrect films out there. And this being the late 70s, this film has had some time to get that kind of reputation. And a lot of times you hear about cult classics, you hear about films that are underground and, really shocking. And sometimes, especially in light of the modern, era, it's like, you're not quite sure if they're still as shocking as everybody says they are. This is an example of a film that completely holds its own. It will absolutely shock you in 2016 because I have not seen anything like this movie before, and I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, as you can tell from this YouTube page, but I have not seen anything quite like this film. Not only in the story, but specifically in the style and in the way that the story unfolds. Musically, with the cinematography, the characters, and of course the violence and the sex in this film is very, very disturbing. And this is a film that I believe is just as shocking as it probably was in the late 70s. Frankly, because I don't think anybody would make this movie today. And it definitely, I don't know if anybody was making it in the late 70s either, folks. This is Island of Death right here. So let's get into this movie. We have here a guy and a girl who travel to a Greek island, beautiful Greek island, and they have some very interesting views about morality and religion and conflicting within themselves. And they go to this island and they take those conflicting views of morality and ethics, in a way, and religion, and they mix and impose it upon some of the inhabitants that they agree with or disagree with on this island. This guy and girl have a very unique relationship with each other. Some might compare it to a Bonnie and Clyde on acid in many regards, and much more perverse than Bonnie and Clyde ever were. But it's deeper than that, and it's more convoluted than that, and more confusing and weird than that, and bizarre. So essentially, it's their interactions on this island, and some of the people that they interact with are a homosexual couple that had just got married, an older woman who's a nymphomaniac, a lesbian bartender who shoots heroin, and just a painter, a man who's painting a church. There are a lot of different things. They even encounter a mute shepherd in the fields, which is probably one of the most interestingly weird sections of this film, which is almost 2 hours long, by the way. So it's very epic in the sections of the film and how those sections play out. Predominantly the last 15 minutes of this film is very, very unique and weird, and you're not expecting it at all. Island of Death. Let's get to the music and the sound design for this film first and foremost. We have throughout the film a couple kind of 70s vocal music pieces, soft rock music pieces that you might have heard on 70s radio, okay? A fairly popular style of music. We have these pieces of music not just in the menu screen for this, but we have it throughout the film. in the end of the film, we have these pieces, about two, I think it's about three, maybe three sung pieces that are repeated at varying points throughout the film. The thing that makes it very, very interesting is that these kind of sung songs, 70s pop rock type songs, have very bizarre ways of singing at times, very abrasive and abrupt, and make you feel kind of uneasy just at times. But the lyrics are really peculiar and very interestingly bizarre. You would not be expect if you really listen to the lyrics. It's some weird stuff going on there, and in terms of so it really reflects the weirdness and the off-kilter vibe of this entire film. Now, the score of the movie, which I believe a lot of the music in the score was done by the director, if not all. The score for this film is very, it has that almost I drink your blood oppressiveness at times, and also hand percussion. It's almost tribal and ritualistic at times, and then at other times it's dark and weird and moody, and at other times it's very oppressively non-melodic and noisy, very abrasive, very weird and dark and unnerving. This is a film that is filled with sound design, filled to the brim. If it's not those 70s pop, soft rock pop songs, we have tons of sound design that some might not even consider quote-unquote music, like Tobe Hooper in Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive. But we have sound design here that is very, very unnerving, and a lot of diversity in the sound design, a lot of diversity in the music for Island of Death, and all of it is off kilter, especially taken in context to what the story is and what is happening while that music is playing. And just as diverse and off kilter as the sound design and music for this film is, such is the cinematography as well. We have a film that has no business at all having this much style, this much stylistic presence. You know, I've heard so much about this film, and all of the things I've heard about this film is how shocking it is, how disturbing it is, how violent it is. But I never once heard one of those people say how beautifully, stylistically raw and experimental and artistic this film really is. So I am proclaiming it from the mountaintops right now that Island of Death is an extremely skilled, stylistic, cinematic experience. We have in here a motif of photography throughout the entire film, where there's these strobes of like black and white pictures, because both leads are photographers. And so even the title screen with no music at all, and snapshots or snaps, you kind of hear the camera shutter, the and that's how scenes change in this film sometimes. And sometimes you get photos of what's actually happening in this rapid strobe light stream throughout random points of the film. So there's this photography, stylistic motif throughout the entire film, starting with the very bizarre opening credits that are very simplistic, very quiet, and photography themed. Very unique. We also have sections of just very, very wild color changes. In particular, there's one, I think it kind of almost went negative, for a second. We have a lot of that, what I used to call Coke bottle, but I found out from Stephen Thrower, it's the wide-angle lens is what I'm talking about. He also calls it fish eyes. But it's where it's really, it's very abrasive. It's very unnerving. It makes some things look bigger sometimes, including people, like in this particular film. And it's also just very surreal. It makes the film world an ultra reality, a dark reality, especially in context. And this film is filled with that. And the architecture for this film is unreal. And not only that, we have narration from the lead male character of the film, which is very, very interesting and weird throughout this whole film. And it's almost as if you are with the villains, in a way like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, or you're from that perspective, or Joe Spinell in Maniac. The architecture for this film is unbelievable. I mean, you are on this Greek island. I mean, if you don't live on this Greek island, you're getting a location that you've never experienced before. Tons of white. Tons of white. This film is in the daytime predominantly, and it's in it, almost all of it. And tons of white. White paint everywhere. Beautiful kind of cobblestone streets and all of the water and the windmills and the mountains abroad and the beautiful homes and shops and restaurants, which are all kind of, nothing like the modern world of what we know of as restaurants and homes and hotels. They look like massive amounts of villas all next to each other. Just wonderful, unbelievable atmosphere for such a dark and disturbing, horrific, evil film. The violence in this film is deplorable, despicable, vulgar, perverse in every way. This is not a gore film, but it is one of the most violent films I've ever seen. And it's in the tone, and it's in the context, and it's just horrifying. These two lead characters, especially the girl, are so interesting, folks. You've never seen anything like this before. I mean, these characters are very, very complex, and you will have an extremely difficult time trying to figure out where the hell they are coming from and what is going on inside of their minds. And we have elements of bestiality, we have homosexual violence, we have violence involving golden showers, we have crucifixion. I mean, folks, if you're not getting a vibe of what I'm talking about here, we have instances of sodomy. We, of course, have rape. We have things involving incest. I mean, this is things involving drugs. This is a very, very violent and mean-spirited adventure of a film, and sexually just the same. I mean, we have full nudity from the women in particular, and from all different ages, older women as well. We have very sexually perverse acts happening, mixed with violence, and sometimes becoming simultaneously with the violence or before the violence. Very, very bizarre and lurid things involving this man and this woman and what they do sexually with each other and with other people. There's masturbation in this movie that's very bizarre. There are very cutting-edge things for this film in the late 70s with men kissing and things like that. Very cutting edge, very ahead of its time. And this is a very, very daunting, disturbing, dark, evil, mean-spirited, daytime, and beautifully shot film called Island of Death. This is a very rough film, but I will tell you something, folks. What people don't talk about is the style, and they also don't talk about the philosophy of this film, the philosophy of the leads. And that philosophy is, it's very hard to pin them down easily. And that makes the conclusion of the film and the entire film that much more interesting amidst the constant brutal violence and sexual perversity of Island of Death. Thank you so much, folks, for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like Island of Death from 1976-77.